Hi, everybody. I'm Bishop David Alston. Happy Thursday. Hit the share button. Tag your friends. Tag your family. Get everyone you can on here tonight for this special edition, our special show of Sign of the Time. Let's get ready to talk about the movement, the struggle from a perspective of the past, the present, and the future. Here, get ready for a sign of the times. Welcome once again. I want to thank you, my friends, for allowing us to come into your homes, your place of business, wherever you may be tonight. I want to thank you from the East Coast to the West Coast, to the North, to the South, everywhere in between. You are watching Sign of the Times. our daily show in which we get special guests and we sit down and we talk about the things that are affecting you. My friends, I'm excited about tonight. I'm excited about what is happening this week. This has been an awesome week. This has been a powerful week in which we have had major discussion on Monday night. Prince Woodbury from Charlotte, North Carolina, talked to us about the homeless situation that's going on in the world. And on Tuesday, my goodness, if Bishop Tyrone Smith from Baltimore, Maryland didn't just talk to us and just put us into a frenzy, I don't know what a frenzy is. Last night, I am still overwhelmed with last night. Apostle Brian Keith Williams came on last night and he just blew us away talking about racism and the responsibility that we have in this country. And I'm telling you, it was powerful. I want to challenge you on the heels of that show last night. The world is watching us. They're trying to see what are we going to do. Last night's show, between the views on Facebook and on YouTube, we've already mastered and hit over 5,000 views of that show last night. And I want to challenge you to do the same thing with this one tonight. It was powerful. Why am I so heavy on the fact that we hit 5,000 views already? It's because somebody is watching and wants to know what is going on in our world. And it is up to you and I to make sure that the world sees and hears and knows what's going on. It's up to you and I to hit the share button, to hit the like button. It's up to you and I to go to YouTube, search for a sign of the time. David Bright Alston, search for it, my friends. Look for it. And when you see it, make sure that you subscribe to the page. Because when you subscribe to the page, you're letting the world know that we're not asking you, we're not suggesting to you that Black Lives Matter. We're telling you that Black Lives Matter. And those lives didn't just start mattering overnight. Those lives didn't just start happening. Our lives didn't just start happening with the murder of George Floyd. Our lives mattered from the moment that we came over here 401 years ago, and it's been mattering ever since. And as we said last night, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Tonight is a special night. Tonight is a special broadcast because of our guests. We decided to put together a unique panel, one that has never been formed before. And my guests tonight make up 3 generations of people, of young African-American men. And I put emphasis on young because all of us are young. There are going to be 4 of us on here, but of the 4 of us that are on here, 3 are representing each level of Black Americanism from the male perspective. My guests tonight, I'm going to bring them on the screen right now. I just wanted you all to get a good look at me for a while because I'm going to step out of the way and let them talk tonight. My friends, I want you to help me welcome 3 powerful men, 3 wonderful African-American men that are with us. I will introduce them. I'll go around around the screen. The young man that you see here on your lower right-hand part of the screen, his name is Dartez Wright. Dartez was with us on last week. He spoke to us so eloquently last week. He spoke to us so powerfully last week. The gentleman in the middle of the screen, whose name our other guest popped off, and we'll get him back on. I believe we got something worked out for him. But our guest in the center of the screen is Apostle Dr. Stephen Gardner, who I guess we can call him a regular on the show because he's always here on the show with us. Dartez Wright was with us last week, and he just talked to us in such a profound way that had so many of us older young men just in awe, and we just couldn't figure out how a young man of that age could be so profound and yet know his stuff, so to speak. Now, also my guest joining us, he popped off the screen. I know why he popped off the screen is because he popped off the screen, and I know why. Because I think because he's trying to, as my mama used to say, be grown and, and be grand. You know, some people we were on here, and he had to make a grand entrance. He just couldn't. He just couldn't come on here and be quiet. He had to come on here. None other than Dr. Thomas Brown. How are you doing, Doctor?
I'm doing fine with all this great, with all y'all's technology. I didn't pop off. Y'all controlling the technology. I just happened to be here.
Thank you, sir, for joining us. I do want to give a little heads up and information about our guest tonight, Dr. Gardner. He has his PhD in education with an emphasis on social justice. So he knows exactly what he's talking about. Dartez Wright, a young man that I work with in school, I said this on one of the posts. He's a future doctor. We're going to push him to get his doctorate. Somebody ought to say something. We're going to
All
push
right.
him to get his doctorate. We're going to push him all the way until we can put those letters behind his name and in front of his name. Let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Thomas Brown. He has a PhD in urban affairs. Dr. Brown is going to talk to us. We're going to talk about where we came from, where we are, and what we expect going forward. And so, because, Doctor, we're going to interact, I want you guys to talk. I'll just host and get out of the way and maybe add a few questions here and there. I want to say to my guests that are watching, if you have a question, please pop it up on the screen. I'll be glad to pose your question on the screen so that we can get it on, we can do this thing so that, your questions can be seen and we can talk to you about the direction that we're going in our nation with this racism. I want to say this before I turn it over to Dr. Brown. And when I turn it over to him, Doc, I want you to give us a little insight on your past, who you worked with, who you saw growing up, who you interacted with. But I want to start by saying this. I mentioned to someone earlier today, racism in America is just like coronavirus. I think they're twins. The reason why I say racism is like the coronavirus, and the reason I say they're twins is because most people don't think it's real unless it affects them.
Wow.
So we're going to deal with one of the twins tonight. We're going to deal with this older twin because it's not just new, it's an older twin. So we're going to yield to our elder statesman, to our elder. We're going to be respectful, even though he left us and came back, made that grand entrance. Dr. Brown, talk to us, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then let's get into a discussion on where we need to go going forward.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Brother Alston. Appreciate it. Yeah, I guess I am the older brother, almost 80. I'm 78, and fortunately, I was born in what they call Chicago, Chi-Town, back in the 40s, and my dad brought me and my mother to Indianapolis. That was years ago, and there's a rich history in that. My dad was a military man who had struggled with the racism in the Army, and my mother herself was a genius in her own right. She just happened to be the birth child, and her father was an Irish ship captain, and her mother was his, whatever you want to call, was the person that she had two other sisters, and they all were very bright, light-skinned, and so consequently, that history lingers, and that's a whole nother story. But my background came in the fact that in the late 40s and 50s, my dad had a close relationship with Dr. King. And in 55 and 56, I was privileged as being at the age of 14 and 15. King would come and visit Indianapolis out from Montgomery, taking a break. Even him and Ralph Abernathy, they had visited, and on 2 or 3 occasions, Dad would have Dr. King speak here in Indianapolis, and many people were scared. And many of my black brothers in the ministry were not comfortable with Dr. King being here. But as a young person, I was amazed to see King at the age of 27, and my dad was 33. So imagine me sitting and watching, and young people are to be seen and not heard. So I didn't say nothing because when they were there, they were down to earth guys, and that gave me the chance to get the car, and I go anywhere I wanted to. However, during that time, but my dad and King and Abernathy and a bunch of other civil rights workers at that time visited the house. That was in the 50s. And one significant thing that I would like for you all as right in the pocketbook. If you study the history of the Montgomery movement, you'll get another perspective of strategy and organizing. Second to that, Dr. King was a strong advocate for nonviolence. That's not a word that has been mentioned too often now in this 21st century. Nonviolence. He was a strong advocate in the late 50s and the 60s, and by that time, by 1962, because of my experiences, I went on and joined SNCC, which was called the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. I did not get into the Freedom Rides. I did organizing in the Freedom Riders, and we didn't use the word civil rights because we weren't dealing with civil rights. We were dealing with liberation. We wanted freedom from oppression. And of course, we had to be responsible for organizing in places like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, North Carolina. I know your country very well. And in Raleigh, North Carolina, we had an organizing portion at Shaw and St. Albans universities. It's a very exciting place to be in 62 and 63. You had a strong Ku Klux Klan in North Carolina, and you still probably do.
Yes.
And at the same time, but in my experiences was we were freedom, we call ourselves freedom fighters. I got arrested in demonstrations, and they charged us for inciting riots. Now, we couldn't incite the riot. What we did, we incited them dogs and the tear gas and the water hose and the beatings. We incited them to be violent, and we had to teach our young people how to be nonviolent and how to expect to be harmed and hurt for a cause. Now, that is a period of time. I'm just discussing the late 50s and the 60s was a whole nother kind of dynamic of liberation. And then they came out with, in 1964, 65, they came out with the Civil Rights Bill. Well, our concern was the whole rule of law, the civil rule of law needs to be redone. See, we need to study the rules of law because the rules of law are the foundations for white supremacy. All of your founders who wrote those particular constitutional matters happened to have been slave owners. You know, your president of that time, we honor Thomas Jefferson.
Yeah.
All of those guys, not all of them, but a large majority of them, had what? Slaves. Also at the same time, the slave market was coming from Europe, and Europe was bringing the slaves over here, so America for a long time was a colony. Now, I consider it to still be a colony when you look at the economics of things. I consider it to be a colony when you look at the educational philosophy. The whole dynamics of philosophy under Dewey puts us in another dynamic, and I won't even begin to talk about religion because I know it's kind of uncomfortable for to understand our religion in America is a colonized religion. We have colonized God, we have colonized Christ, and I think I talked with you all what happened to my man George Floyd and what happened to many black folk, male and female. I call it crucifixions. We've been getting crucified, and we're still being crucified. And there's different ways you can look at crucifixion, but we've been taught a certain kind of way. But to address where we are now, we're in a period of a new challenge. And our challenge is, how do we come together and work together and cooperate with one another and not compete with one another? White supremacy motto is to divide and to conquer. Now, to divide means creating us to compete against each other. When we cooperate, we become unified. And when we become unified, we then have what I call, that we don't even use that word no more. Stokely and all of us use it, black power.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't hear nobody talking about black power because black power is unity. Black lives matter, but black power in unity gets rid of anything in our united front to love and respect one another. That's how simple it is to me.
Wow. Well, we seem to have lost his picture up there, but we can still hear him
Yeah, I can
talking.
still hear you, but
Yeah.
see, I got one of these senior citizen computers. You know,
Well, listen, as long as we can hear you, we don't need to see you. We can hear you, but you'll pop back up in a minute.
oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm looking at this thing, man.
Dr. Gardner, how do we bridge the gap between before we get to this next generation in Dartez Wright? How do we bridge the gap between what Dr. Brown so eloquently spoke about and where we are currently, or how do we get to the
Well, it, let's go back and look at a couple of points that Dr. Brown said that we need to revisit. Number one, he did not refer to the movement as a civil rights movement, but as freedom fighters.
right,
So in their mindset, in their genre, in their efforts, it was not the legislation that brought down civil rights that was important to them. It was the actual efforts of the movement of freedom that was important. So my first point in how to bridge the gap, and that's a code word that Dr. Brown and I know about in another life, when I used to live in Indianapolis. But is that we need to return to the concept and the idea as being freedom fighters. Can y'all hear me okay?
I hear you well.
yeah,
Okay.
I
All right.
can't. I can't hear him.
okay, I'll get you in a second. Let me refresh this and
Okay. Can you hear me now?
you need me now.
Dartez, can you?
I can hear you.
All right, can you
Okay,
hear
good.
me?
All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can hear you.
All right,
All right. So we need to return to the understanding and awareness of what did it mean to really be a freedom fighter?
right,
Because it it was about getting free.
right,
And so are we about getting free? So we need to be informed. We need to be educated along the lines of how the early roots of a thing began and to facilitate that action into our current context. There's a scripture out of the Bible that says, if the foundations are destroyed, what will the righteous do? And so when we talk about the foundation of a thing, we're getting back to its origin as to how the effort, what was the original impetus, what was the original focus? It was freedom. Am I right, Dr. Brown?
You're correct. You're correct. And it goes back to what you're saying. We need to read some of our own history makers, and that's like a Carter G. Woodson. You remember what he said, the miseducation of the Negro?
Yes, yes. So it's those kind of documents. Carter G. Woodson, Miseducation of the Negro, other documents that came along during that time, other writers that came along during that period of time to be included in what, for lack of a better word, of a curriculum, an education piece that will bring the current generation up to speed as to how we got started in the first place, what were the real issues, you know. So that's important. Um, so I think that in going forward, we've got to have that education about where we've been. We got to know what we have. Why did they fight? What was it all about?
right,
The second major thing that he touched on, which I think we need to revisit in being able to have a comprehensive plan of action in our current protests, or I like his word, demonstrations.
demonstration,
See, we got to change the language.
right,
It needs to be changed from protests to demonstrations because that's the language,
hmm
that's the vernacular
hmm
that the original freedom fighters used. When you change the language, you change the nomenclature, and then you give it a perception of whatever you want it to be. But when we talk about freedom fighters, when we talk about what we just mentioned there in terms of what we're projecting, and the third thing is nonviolence. Freedom fighting, nonviolence, and demonstrations were the language of this movement. So the thing I have to ask that if we're going to bridge the gap, we have to take the litmus test of our current approaches. Is it are we engaged in demonstrations that are nonviolent, and is it really about freedom? That's the first step. Bringing together. Let me understand it from how you guys saw it, and let's sit at the feet of the elders and let them inform and craft a way by which we can draw from their wisdom and put a comprehensive action plan in place that can bring about the outcome desired: freedom, peaceful demonstrations,
Right.
and nonviolence. Go ahead.
Well, that's good. Now I want to, because your conversation, what you said was powerful. What Dr. Brown said was powerful. I want to ask this question now to, uh, I want to ask this question to Dartez Wright, who is 30 years old. And I want to ask him, hearing all of this, what is the thought of someone your age listening to someone who's almost 80 talking about freedom fighters and demonstration? Then you hear Dr. Gardner, who I jokingly always say is 109. hearing the older generation talk about these things, nonviolence. What goes through the mind of a 30-year-old or 25-year-old hearing all of this, knowing what's going on in our world? Because there's no conversation between.
I think that's the gap. We haven't had those conversations with the older generation. First, I want to tell Dr. Brown. I've studied SNCC, so it was amazing for him to even say that with Floyd McKissick and Miss Ella Baker and all the things that they did down in Warren County, the Soul City area. So just to hear him talk about that, it did my heart some good. I think that's the disconnect. We haven't had the discussions with the older people. I hate to say it, but somewhere along the way, I think the ball was dropped between the 80s and the 90s. And the leaders became the rap, hip hop people, and we lost real leaders. Tupac, in a sort, was for the people and taught the Black Power. When we think about Black Power, and power is the phenomenon to create something to act in a desired manner. And I think we lost leadership somehow, some way. We lost unity. Uh, my generation, I don't know a goal that we have, except go to school and get an education. Outside of that, for a community, I don't know any goals that we have for the Black community. Um, I don't even know if our generation is with the nonviolent movement. I think we're more of a nation of Islam. You touch me, I touch you back. Not promoting violence, but I can't let you beat me up. You hit me, I hit you back. But we always want to move in peace. Um, I think that we don't have a list of demands for my community. I don't know what we're demanding. I don't know what we're asking for. I know we're asking for freedom and equality. But after we get that, what else are we asking for? With our educational systems, economically, what are we asking for?
Dr. Brown, Dr. Gardner, you two can jump in and answer this question. However, before I ask the question, Dr. Brown, I'm sure he said that it made him feel good to hear about SNCC. I'm sure it made you feel good to have a 30-year-old know what SNCC was. Because if you go out the street and ask most young people his age what is SNCC, they would say a brown candy bar that you get, you know. So I'm sure that made your heart feel glad that these young people do know about it. My question to both of you older gentlemen, I don't want him to answer this, but based on his response just now, do you think that we as a people relaxed November of 2008? One Tuesday night, I remember calling my mom and saying, "You know what?" And she's crying. I never thought I'd see this happen. Do you think we let our guard down and relaxed in 2008 when one of us began to occupy the highest seat in the land?
Go ahead, Steve. You answer that first.
Well, I think we did because we saw the icon of our hope. America elected their first African American president, and people saw then on the one hand they saw it as the answer all,
Mm-hmm.
and the truth of the matter was it was definitely a pointed in a change in direction in terms of the acceptance of a person of color at the highest role or at the most powerful office there was. Where we let down our guard is to look and say, okay, now we got a black president. He's going to advocate for our causes. He's going to advocate for our freedom. He's going to advocate for the things that we want to do. And therefore, I disengage with any kind of responsibility to try to do any efforts because we have an African American in the Oval Office. We thought a man would finish it. And so, and it can't be done by a man being the only one. I mean, obviously, we still, and let me just be straight, and I'm shoot at the hip. We still many times have a Moses mentality. We want a Moses to lead us out.
Okay.
But this next movement, and I'm speaking, currently, it's not about a Moses, a single individual. It's about a movement or a collective of many Moseses, if you want to put it that way. Moses was a seed, so we need a harvest of people that look like us. Jesus, when he died, they thought, oh, we go crucify Jesus, we'll stop the movement. What happened? By killing him, you caused the movement to expand and blow up. The people of the way turned the world upside down. So, in other words, that's the kind of effort that has to build upon someone there in the office. Now, that's just my take as to why we let down our guard and to what we need to do going forward.
Okay, well put. What I could do on that was say ditto. It's
We want more than that.
I know. The dynamic is there's another dimension in there that in 2008, yes, I commend Obama because he had a playbook. And he used the white man's racist playbook to win, and the playbook was what I call technology. Okay. He used technology in such a way, the science of technology, to win, and the name of the game was to make a certain amount of white folk see their condition that it is time. Do you know who really prophesied that there was going to be a president? One of our number one comedians. Think about it. Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor.
Yeah. Richard Pryor stated that by 2000 and something, and King even mentioned that by 2000 there would be a black president. But having a black president is a political thing. What we have to do as a black people with education, and the younger brother, he is looking through those lenses of what he sees as his reality. Because in his reality, he sees within us our own division. Now, he's not going to be willing just to jump out and say that. But this brother knows what's going on. He knows every trick in the game like we knew the tricks in the game. Knows what it takes to survive, and at the same time, he's cultivated survival skills. But then what we have to do is pave the way for our young people to not be survivors. That's like being in a jungle. What he has to see us do is like James Ball. When James Ball and I was together in Selma, James said, Tom, he said, and I couldn't even tell y'all what kind of scotch he drank because I had to go get it. That ain't gonna stick with y'all. But he said, our young people will do what they see us do us. They see how we behave. They see how we can put each other down. Now, that's just a part of the dimension of our existence because we came in this place, which is designed to be white supremacist. Back to my statement, 2008 became a kind of a window to see what we must do and what we must, because Obama, if you ask him, would he want to be a president again? I don't think he would. But that's neither here nor there. That's my 2 cents worth. But the bottom line is, a president in the United States is still like being part of the colony of Europe.
Right.
America is still a colony to Europe, and nobody wants to buy in on that. You got a president that wants to be a king and is acting like a king, a monarch. You got a president who's acting like that European, Germany, France, and all of those dynamics that go on that have their way of having problems with us as black folk because we got a history. When you look at the Old Testament, you got to look at a history even before there was an Old Testament.
Right.
You've got to know that. You got to study Chancellor Williams. You got to study the black scholars. And the only thing I can say is, why are our black colleges closing down? We're not keeping our colleges going, our educational institutions. We've got churches on every other dimension of the corners, but how many black hospitals do we have? What about the Jewish economic system that we study? And you study those first 5 books, my Jewish brothers have an economics that's unbelievable. And we preach it, but do we act it? A 1 cent worth.
Wow.
That's more than 1 cent. Boy, that's hot.
I like to go around and ask each one of you to give your view from your perspective on this topic, this word, because I remember working a job once and the workers were complaining about the working conditions. And I made a comment. I said, well, coming from up north, being in a union, if everyone in the factory, everyone in the plant, everyone on the parking lot, everyone on the job, everyone in the office, if all of you all got together and walked out and decided, I'm not coming to work tomorrow, just one day, they can't fire everyone. They would have to do something to listen to your demands. It would just take one day of everyone being on the same page. My question, I would like each one of you, you can take turns, it doesn't matter the order. If we as a people, because Dr. Brown talked about the demonstration, we don't want to say the protests, the demonstrations that took place in Selma, the demonstrations that took place in the South. If we got together now and demonstrated on the same page, we can do something. How much of a unity do you think we have as a people? Because we, historically, it would seem like we just can't, the reason why that wouldn't work on a job site is because you're always going to have one person that's going to say, you know what, I got to come to work tomorrow. I can't miss work. And if you have one person that doesn't go along with the program, it won't work. What
Also,
level?
why don't you let Dartez?
Also, why don't you let Dartez
That'd be fine.
ask what he sees, what we talking about?
Right. That'll be fine. Yes, Dartez, you can start that off from your perspective.
It's the unity, the vision, the goal for my generation. My mom always told me you got to be willing to die for what you believe in, and if you're not willing to die for it, then you won't give 100%. I don't think a lot of people are willing to die for what they say they're asking for, and I think it's I don't trust most people that look like me, and you kind of taught that you can't trust black people. You can't trust a person that look like you. It's almost like white is right and black is wrong. So a lot of times it's trust issues. A lot of times I don't trust people in my community, so I can't work with them because I don't trust them or I don't agree with their vision. So a lot of times it's trust issues. And like Dr. Brown said, they make us compete against each other. So everything is a competition. Even if you leading it, I feel like, well, I want to be the leader. Why you got to get the glory for it? I think that happens a lot in our community. And I think that's a big issue for us at this point. Is no unity.
Mm-hmm. Who was that before the next answer? Who was that? Maybe one of you who wrote that book or the article years ago, and they actually told the slave master that I've got the key to disrupting blacks if you could just get them to turn against one another. I forget we talked
Willie
about
Lynch.
Willie Lynch.
Willie Lynch story.
I couldn't think of that name. Willie Lynch. Yeah.
How to make a slave.
How to make a slave. Right.
Yes, sir.
And you know what he taught, and I'd like the Dartez to respond. He had his way and method has reached us where we fear to love and we love to fear.
That's good. Yeah. We fear to love and we love to fear.
Yeah.
Fear to love one another.
Yeah.
And we love to fear each other.
Right.
So when you got that dynamic, when your Christian principles say you got to fear God, how do you fear God and love God at the same time? If that ain't a contradiction,
Yes,
I don't know what contradictions are. My 1 cent's worth.
Dr. Gardner.
Well, so what you're saying, what I'm saying is that there's it seems like that there's been bred into our midst the seeds of distrust.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
That I grow up not trusting you because you look like me, or I grow up because you look like me. Your product or your service is going to be inferior, and so I'm not going to buy from you. I'm not going to, because you're going to rip me off, or you're going to charge me more, or whatever the case it might be, or you might not follow through. I don't need to preach to the choir, but y'all know what I'm talking about. We have sometimes people don't follow through.
There's a little piece when he said, white is right, black get back, brown stick around,
Yep.
mellow is mellow.
Y'all
That's the skin color dynamic. I'm sure he
Yeah.
sees that dynamic that takes place on color complexions that go into, am I right, Dartez?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you guys a question. Have either one of you, or if someone's watching, you can hit the like button, or you can even comment. Have any one of you ever eaten at a McDonald's and you got your fries, or the service was bad and you left disappointed? Or you got home and they didn't have what you... Have you ever eaten at a fast food place and they didn't have what you wanted, you ordered in the bag when you got home?
Oh, that happens all the time.
Yeah, that's true.
Have you ever said, you know what, I ain't never going back to another McDonald's as long as I live?
Yeah.
But fear to love and love to fear.
But the moment we patronize a black establishment and the service is bad or something happens, we walk away saying, that's why I don't support black businesses. They don't know how to... That's what you were just talking about, Dr. Gardner.
I know.
Exactly. Seeds of distrust already sown.
Right.
But we'll go back to McDonald's, or we'll go back to Wendy's, knowing that they didn't give me, they gave me a small fry and I paid for a medium fry, or didn't put everything in the bag. And so part of that has to do with, okay, since we already have this problem of not trusting, then, how do we begin to trust? If we have a problem not trusting our own, how do we begin to trust? Because when I look at other cultures that come into this America that I'm a citizen of, they don't seem to have a problem trusting, one another when they come over here.
Right.
You see Asians come over here, they have no problem trusting. You see East Indians come over here, they have no problem trusting, even those who come from Africa. Right. That did not come by way of slave trade, but actually came over here, have no problem trusting.
Right.
What can we do?
We need
to rebuild or to establish trust, because without trust, we can't win.
Right. I heard a story one time, not a story, I heard a gentleman on the radio a couple of weeks ago he currently works, I believe, for ESPN, and he's of Indian descent. And he said that when his family came here, he wanted to get into broadcasting, and they moved to, I think it was Fort Lauderdale, Florida, or Jacksonville, Florida. And his dad was going, the young man said, I was moving out on my own, and I'm getting ready to get my own apartment, etc. And he said, my dad went to a phone booth with a handful of quarters. And he said for 15 minutes, Dad kept putting quarters in, dialing numbers in the big phone book, looking through the phone book, dialing. And he said he came back to the car, and I said, Dad, what were you doing? And his dad said, well, I called everyone in this town that I knew had a last name that was Indian. And I told them that my son is going to be moving here, living by himself. All of the people that I called told me to write their address down and to tell you that you don't have to want for anything. If you were hungry, you go by their house and eat. If you didn't have enough food, if you didn't have any clothes or needed some money, go by. They were going to take care of you. He said, but Dad, I don't know these people. These are strangers. He said, but they're family now because they come from the same culture. I know I don't have to ask this question, but do you think any of us could get on the phone and call Raquita and Ray and Thomasina and say, look, my child is, Dartez is hungry and he's moving here and he's in Indianapolis and if he gets hungry, can he come by your house?
Brother Alston, the bottom line is when they brought us over here in slavery, what was the first thing they took from us? They took our language.
Right.
They take your language. Language identifies. Language is your identity. Not only that, most of our brothers and sisters from Africa came from different tribes. Mm-hmm. You got tribes. They brought them here, so they wouldn't let them use their language, nor use their tribal language, nor use their name. They gave us their name.
I just was telling someone that the other day. Your last name.
Yeah, Brown, and Nicholsons and Smiths and Johnsons, and I've got colleagues, Stokely and all of us working together, Charlie Cobb. Then we started picking up African names, and I said, well, my problem is I can't spell them. So what I'm trying to say is that slavery, the kind of slavery that we were in, was to take away your identity, and that's where Dr. Gardner is. How do we move to trust when there is an identity problem, and it's based on the color of our skin, not the content of our character as a people because of our history situations? And so this dynamic of what you were just explaining was the fact that we can't unite because of the name, because we don't know that. What do we do to unite? And King was moving to that, and he was using a Christian principle of love. Now, that was a tough puppy, because he was using the principle of love, being able to love one another, and he made a point, and even our songs during the 60s, the young man, he wasn't around. All of our songs were love songs, and one song that drove hard was with Aretha of respect. Learning how to respect yourself and respect one another. Mm-hmm. Look at some of our songs back in the late 50s and the early 60s. It was I call it the message of the soul. Mm-hmm. Music is something that we seem to harmonize around. And Desire, and his time coming up, hip-hop became another kind of music that degraded us. Am I right, Desire?
Right.
Yes, sir.
And that was a way to make money. If I can signify and make you look crazy, folk paid for that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's also in the marketing game. Market us to be competitive again, or market us to cooperate. And once you start that process, Dr. Gardner, of cooperation, it is out of cooperation that trust develops.
So Dr. Brown and Dartez, I want to talk to you two for a moment. Dr. Gardner, you can jump in. What is the problem between the disconnect? It's almost like Dartez can get along and learn from Dr. Gardner. Dr. Gardner can glean from you. But the big disconnect is your generation versus the younger generation. What can you two do to develop a trust? because it's almost, whether it's music or culture, it's almost as if the 30, the 25, 30 to 35-year-old generation, they have no respect for the older generation, because you guys are so old, you don't know what you're talking about. And then the older generation is telling the younger generation, you guys are still wet behind the ears. So
Well, you kind
Dartez,
of answered the question, because it's back to my thesis. We fear to love and we love to fear.
right.
Old folk are scared of youngsters until you meet. Some of them you don't have to worry about. They'll come back on you. But
Right.
it's again the fear. And religion and our religious institutions, or our institutions in the black religious experience, has not fostered programs to what Steve uses, our term bridging the gap. We don't know how to bridge our own gap between our young and our old.
So Dartez, what can you contribute? How do you think that we can bridge that gap?
To be honest, I may seem off, but I think the restructure of black families, to rebuild black families. I had a father figure in my life where I could respect somebody that was older than me. So when I talk to you, when I talk to Dr. Brown and Dr. Gardner, I don't take it from you beat me up. I take it from, how can I apply this to my life and make it relevant?
Mm-hmm.
I think that families are black. The black family is in disarray, and I think it plays a major part. I watch in my community. Probably was me and maybe two or three other guys who had both parents,
Mm-hmm.
and I watched how the other guys in the neighborhood, they didn't take direction well because they never had that figure to provide direction in their life.
Mm.
And I could be wrong, but this is something that I observed growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So family. So family. So um, we have restoring that extended family concept, which we've played with and toyed with. The idea it takes a whole village to raise a child. Um, I remember back in the day, if I did something and one of my neighbors saw me do it, my neighbor would beat me.
Oh, yeah.
And when I get home, my mama would beat me.
Mm-hmm.
And when my daddy would get off work, then I'd get beat a third time. I mean, so now because we saw the value of community, and we could see that that all the villagers, the village elders, had access to all the children, and they were all on the same, here it is, same page. So one of the things that is part of bridging the gap is make sure that let's get on the same page. Now, obviously, we can't get everybody on all the same pages, but whatever page we can unify around, that becomes something we can start. You can't unify around a single idea unless the idealists are willing to sacrifice their ego.
Right.
That
You know what,
it ain't about me.
Alston and Dartez Wright, there is a great opportunity, and this is not even going to fit in the scheme of your thinking. The greatest opportunity of organizing unity, guess where it is? The prison.
Wow, the prison. Wow.
Where our young blacks are, man. And right, am I right, Dartez?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
They are in the prisons. They are confined. Where are our ministries? In the prisons, where we can liberate and get educated from them and educate them into unity. Does that make any sense?
No.
Yes, sir.
No. Yeah. When I say no, I'm not saying no to your answer. I'm saying yes, it makes sense, but no, it's not going to happen. And I'll tell you why. You can't. I don't know whether. Well, I'll say it. This is my show, right?
Yeah, that's your
I
show.
get in trouble. I can get in trouble, right?
Right. Go
You're
ahead.
not going to have ministry help in the prison because you can't raise an offering in the prison.
Well, no. Oh no.
I agree.
Let me throw you a fastball. Yes, you can, because you can make them the voices inside the prison where people outside the prison would want to contribute.
Oh, he flipped the script. See, that's
You're
wisdom
right.
for you. That's wisdom.
He called the old because they know the way.
Also, let me add another caveat to that. One of the major parts of the prison industry is the black church become private believe, but cigarettes get in there. Understanding the economics of capitalism and organizing our people around the economics of a system called capitalism, which you can create with the church base, ministering, and at the same time, it's paying for itself. Most prisoners, when they go in, the taxpayer pays close to $40,000 or $45,000 a year. Now realize how many young people, like even Wright, can become an educator inside the prison and get paid. There's an economics even in the critical circumstances. We don't have no black hospitals.
Right.
But we sure got a lot of prisons with black folk in them. Wow. An idea.
Would you tell us, Dr. Brown, what are the 3 principles of economics?
I knew you'd come up with that. Production, distribution, and consumption. The tragedy is, and Brother Wright, our tragedy is we are consumer slaves.
Yes, sir.
We're not producers, we're not distributors, but right now we are the consumer slaves. If we didn't buy for 1 week in Raleigh, North Carolina, you would rock the system.
You're right.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I met Dr. Claude Anderson in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And he talked to me about how integration rocked the core of the black economics, where we had black hospitals and black teachers and black schools and black grocery stores, and how we took our money from each other and gave it right to the other colored people. And not just saying white, the Chinese, the Irish, whatever you want to call it. We stopped spending with each other after we integrated.
Right. Where's President Trump going? He's going to Tulsa, Oklahoma to speak on Juneteenth about what's going on. That's the president going to Tulsa. Black Wall Street of America. They drop bombs on that city.
Yes, sir.
They did everything because black folk control their economic, consumptional, distributive, and productional abilities.
And wasn't recognized in the state history books until 1996.
You're
Right.
right. But we knew that history.
We knew it.
Now, who was the first millionaire woman in America?
Madam C.J. Walker.
C.J.
Yeah, and that's black and white. She was the first millionaire woman.
Right.
Not white woman. She was a millionaire black woman when white women wasn't even millionaires.
Right.
That's the truth.
If you want to be liberated and have your freedom in America, you've got to look through economic lenses.
Right.
Yes, sir.
And the main oppressor on that is our religious institutions.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That's my 1 cent worth.
Wow.
See, he can say that because his dad was a pastor and he's a former pastor. So, pastor can really talk about each other, right?
Right.
It's easy. If he was a non-pastor, it'd be hard for him to say that.
My granddaddy was a pastor. My great-granddaddy was a pastor. And I didn't intend to do that.
But you did.
Right.
Yeah.
You were pastor when I met you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Wow. How important is it you guys we talk about our history, how important is it to find out your personal history?
Well, I've been, Steve and a whole bunch of my former students have been my case to write, to do the writings on that, as we speak. I even got a call from Los Angeles saying, all right, let's write. And Steve will know who I'm talking about. Mosel's son.
Yep.
Richard Saunders.
Richard Saunders. I know Richard Saunders. Yeah.
Yeah, he's out there. But the dynamic is I spend my time like what you do. I do radio every week. Been doing it for 52 years. Good grief. But we still try to educate from that using different platforms. And y'all are trying to teach me how to use this platform technology like drive me crazy. If I was going to develop this platform, like I told you, I'd have it to be able to go from mortality to immortality. Talk to the ancestors over 2,000 years ago, bring the ability of a technology called spirituality.
Hey, Dr. Brown, why don't you tell them about your program, the history of the program, the radio show that you've been doing there in Indianapolis for 50 years. Tell us the name of it now and tell us its origins.
It started out of the Operation Breadbasket. If y'all, it's still young, y'all too young. Leon Sullivan and King.
I'm from.
Oh, yeah, Leon.
I know Reverend Leon Sullivan. Right Hope Baptist Church. Yes, sir.
Got with King, and they started Operation Breadbasket in Chicago.
Okay.
And that was one of Sullivan's things because he had the Sullivan operations going on in Philly. Sullivan had pulled General Motors together and created a power base. And then in around 65, you hear the name, in 66, you hear the name Jesse Jackson operating out of Chicago because they made him an exec director. And Jesse, which I know very well, he lived with my parents for about 10 weeks because he was from the Carolinas.
Greensboro.
And so consequently, Operation Breadbasket was in Indianapolis, which started the Indiana Black Expo, which became known all over the country. And Jesse had decided to jump into his thing called Push. That's a whole nother history.
Yes,
and we broadcast from 1968 till this day. It's called Operation Breadbasket Presents Harambe. Harambe is just an African Swahili word which means caring community. So when my dad passed, I said, okay, I'm through. I ain't got to do this no more. Then I said, oh, no, you got to keep on doing it. And I'm still doing it, and she done passed. Now, I'm liable to call her back up and say, can I? And if she answered me, I'll probably be scared to death.
Wow. We've been here over an hour. I'd like to go around and ask each one of you, where do you see the movement, and where do you see our people? Where do you see us going next? What's next?
Go ahead, Dartez.
Brother Wright there.
Go ahead, Dartez.
I think we're in the right direction to get at the table. One of my favorite things to do was to always listen to the older guys talk with my family and drop history and knowledge on me. I think it's now my responsibility to share that same knowledge with the people that I know. And I've been guilty of not sharing information. I just keep it to myself. They're going to think I'm crazy. Nobody's going to stand with me. I'm going to be looking like a fool by myself. But I think it's my responsibility now to catch this younger generation that's coming up. So the gap won't be there. I think it's up to my generation to block the gap now and get information from the older generations so we can change the narrative. We have to change the narrative. We have to organize and like Dr. Brown brought up a couple times, the churches. Man, it's so many churches in Henderson. It's like 350 churches. And Henderson is small. Why don't you all organize and create something big to control the neighborhoods? I seen the barbers at the barbershop. They control the neighborhoods more than the police, more than the churches. Because that's a place where the community comes. Even the church is divided. The black church is divided. I think if we could really, really unify and come together, I think we could change some things.
I agree. And I think part of that process, because we have a long road and we haven't even talked about racial healing yet.
Right.
But we got to heal our own self-image. And sometimes it's going to feel like we're building a plane while it's flying. And so while we're trying to move forward, make efforts to move forward toward racial healing and efforts to move forward toward black on black trust and efforts toward a concerted effort of nonviolence, then what we have to also do is to find something that we can agree on that makes sense to the players, and let's try to work that as a stepping stone while we're working on the other issues that are at hand.
That's right.
Well, in my closing, Steve knows that before he left, I started a charter school, and we have 718 little people, K through 8, and I'm seeing 80% of my children are African Americans, and the other 20% are Latinos. So where I feel I am now is to facilitate educational opportunities for new revolutionaries with a new kind of curriculum. And I just hooked up, Steve, and I'll let y'all know, I've also hooked up with another contingent where my students, when they graduate from the 8th grade and go into high school, they can start taking college camp courses. They can get their bachelor's or their AA degree while they're in the high schools, called Next Generation. So my dynamic is to play the economic educational game, because education is big business, and it's the biggest brainwasher and white supremacist operation going. We just don't know that. So that's the game. That is my craziness. Okay.
All right.
Well, gentlemen, I go ahead. Anyone else have anything to say before?
No.
I'm glad Dr. Brown said that about the educational system. It's the biggest brainwasher ever. I went to North Carolina Central, and I think I owe about $80,000 in money to pay back. But I was watching the Facebook movie, and this was spoke to me out of the whole movie. The man was like, he's flunking out of college. He went to the dean, and the dean told him, "We didn't bring you here to find a job. We brought you here to create jobs." That's what he told the white man. I never was told that. I was told, go to college and get a job. Another form of systemic racism.
Right.
Wow.
We don't own anything.
Wow.
Gentlemen, I'm going to ask you one last question, and I'm going to share something with you on our way out. I'm sure Dr. Gardner is tired of me saying it, because I always talk about my history, my past. Dr. Brown may not know, but I was adopted, and I've recently published an ebook on the struggle of adoption. And my biological grandmother was first cousins with Harriet Tubman. So I am first cousins twice removed from Harriet Tubman. That right there has given me a motivation and a drive to keep going forward, to lead my people to freedom. When I say my people, I don't mean I own them. I mean people that look like me. I want to ask each one of you tonight, in front of, when this broadcast goes out and thousands will see it, will each one of you publicly make a vow to keep on pushing, to keep on going?
Amen.
Keep on pushing.
Keep on pushing.
Keep on.
We have no alternative.
Right.
You know.
You seem like you're singing that song, "Keep on Pushing."
Yeah, I was thinking that, but I didn't want.
You remember the song "Keep on Pushing"?
I didn't want to desecrate the broadcast by singing.
No. Don't do that. You know.
Your Aunt Harriet Tubman is alive in you.
Yes,
See, you got to understand, in the East, I learned that the ancestors are spiritual beings that come back. Mm-hmm. You just had one to come back in you.
All right.
Sure.
Wow.
My guest last night said something that I want to say to you all and everyone that's watching. He gave a little short story about the snail and the worm. He said the snail was crawling up the tree, and the worm was coming down the other side of the tree. And the worm looked at the snail and said, "Mr. Snail, I just came from up top. There's no need of you going up to the top. There are no nuts up there." The snail looked at the worm and said, "It may not be now, but there will be by the time I get up there."
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
You got to keep climbing.
Got to keep climbing.
We got to keep pushing. It may not be. You know, Dr. Brown, I'm sure you can remember and finish this. This great man said one time, "I may not get there with you,
but I did."
But as people will get to the promised land. We got to keep climbing.
Got to keep climbing.
We got to keep climbing.
Got to keep climbing.
Out of tragedy comes a movement. I don't know which one of you said it, but when they killed Jesus Christ, they didn't quit. The movement grew.
The movement grew.
When they killed George Floyd a couple weeks ago, it didn't kill us. The movement grew.
The movement grew.
So we got to keep climbing.
Got to keep climbing.
Somebody's saying there's no hope. but it will be hope, and there will be some nuts up there by the time I may be a slow snail.
But the word hope, I don't really like the word hope. I've told Steve, I like what my girl wrote. I only deal with assurance.
Okay.
Assurance.
Right. I heard one of our guests said one time, you have to have an assurance in your insurance.
There you go.
Assurance in your
You don't
insurance.
having insurance if you don't know it's going to work.
Right, that's true.
An assurance in your insurance. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Gentlemen, I thank you. We've been on here well over an hour. I really appreciate you guys, each one of you. I know you're very busy. Dr. Gardner, you got another show to do, I believe, in a few
Right
minutes.
after this.
You're so busy. Those of you that are watching, if you want to click over and go to Dr. Gardner's page, and
on Church Live.
On Church,
Unchurch.
UNCHU, Unchurch Live, and be his guest tonight. Dartez Wright, I thank you so much. I know that you're busy and you could be doing other things. You got that beautiful little girl that you're tending to and spoiling. And Dr. Brown, what can we say? I thank you so much, because this is a rare, those of you that are watching may not know, but this is rare that Dr. Brown has consented to come on and do something like this. And it means so much to me, and I'm sure to everyone that's watching, that one of our elders, one of our seniors, one of the ones that didn't read about the movement in the 60s before some of us were born, but was there in the middle of it, is still hanging around fighting to see this thing completed. And I believe we're seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to get it done. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. I really appreciate it more than you ever know.
Thank you. And I'm going to have you on Harambe one weekend.
Please
so don't
do.
Be surprised.
Please do. I'm glad to come on there and be quiet. Just sit there like that.
Ain't no way. I know you guys. Ain't no way.
Right.
And I want to get right on there too.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Yeah, get him on. Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. Good move.
Yes. I want to say this before we go, and I'm going to let you guys go. I'll end on this note. He said something last week that I'm still getting messages from some of the gentlemen that's been watching. Dartez said something last week on our show, Dr. Brown. We were talking about black on black crime. He said, I've never seen a black man kill another black man because he was black, but I've seen them fight, and the situation has escalated to violence. But I've never seen one black man say to another black, I'm going to kill you because you're black. But we've seen whites kill blacks because they're black.
He's dead on it. That's why I'm going to put him on the show.
I said it. I mean, you wouldn't have known if it wasn't for me. What about
I'll get you too.
All right. He's got a promoter. You got
I get your drift.
just leave this guy out. Leave this guy out.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys. Enjoy the rest of your evening. I appreciate you so much.
All right. Y'all have a good one.
All right.
Take care. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Want to thank so much our guests tonight for being with us, Dr. Stephen Gardner, Dartez Wright, and certainly Dr. Thomas Brown being with us tonight. This was an awesome, a wonderful show, a wonderful broadcast. We wanted to do something, had to do something, as we're still flowing in this vein of understanding who we are and what we need to do to make it. We're going to make it. As long as we have great generals, as long as we have men in our army, such as Dr. Brown, as long as we have men in our army, such as Dr. Stephen Gardner, as long as we have men in our army, such as Dartez Wright, we can make it, and we will make it, my friends. I'm excited. Listen, in order for us to keep coming back and bringing special guests, we need your support. We need your help. I need you to go to our Cash App and help us stay on the air. Then hit the share button. Hit the share button. And not only hit the share button, go to YouTube and subscribe so that you can see this broadcast again. Not only hit the share button, not only subscribe, but I need you to do a watch party. Do a watch party. The thing I love about a watch party is you can get Dr. Brown and Dartez and Dr. Gardner's voice out, and you don't have to sit there and watch it. Just create a watch party, put it on, click leave, end the show. No, I'm just going away. It'll play. People will see it. People will understand that, listen, we're not bitter. We're not angry. We're not mad. We're not frustrated. What we're doing is we're simply saying, listen, because I love my people doesn't mean that I don't like your people. I just want us to get along and to survive. I appreciate you. Tomorrow, we're going to be right back here with a special guest tomorrow at 8 o'clock. Apostle Aaron McNair from here in North Carolina is going to be with us, and we're going to have a wonderful conversation. When you go to bed tonight, ask yourself a simple question. Did I work toward my destiny and my future and my purpose in life, or did I waste another day? You don't have time to waste another day. I'll see you tomorrow right here. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it.